I've never driven a Carrera GT. I'm very excited. Whoa! What a joy. I can't believe I've never driven one before. Cars with V10 engines are a rarity, and this has to be one of the rarest of them all, the Porsche Carrera GT. Just 1,270 of these V10 powered machines were made, but it's not just the rarity that makes them special. As you'd expect from Porsche, it's an engineering masterclass, state of the art for its time. It all starts here, in the middle, with the engine. The Carrera GT's V10 has its roots in an abandoned 3.5 litre Formula One project from the early 90s, which slightly later became a 5.5 litre project for Le Mans, which is also abandoned. Fortunately, no one likes to see a good V10 go to waste, so the Porsche engineers came up with another plan. At the 2000 Paris Motor Show, they showed off a Carrera GT concept car with that spare racing engine. The reaction was amazing. They were told they had to build it. It was time for the Porsche engineers to get to work. They increased the capacity of that V10 to 5.7 litres, so it delivered 612 horsepower at an incredible 8,000 RPM. They then attached a 6-speed manual gearbox with a radical ceramic composite clutch, half the size and at just 3.5 kilos, half the weight of a conventional unit. Along with dry sump lubrication for the engine, this meant the powertrain could be lowered to the benefit of the centre of gravity. The chassis is carbon fibre, the brakes carbon ceramic, the suspension double wishbones with inboard springs and dampers worked by push rods. But despite that race-bred engine, racing car style suspension, the Carrera GT is far from a stripped out fake racer. It's got leather seats, Bose hi-fi and air conditioning. Although, if you actually want another source of fresh air, there's the removable roof panels. Although with a 0 to 62 of just 3.9 seconds and a top speed of 205 miles an hour, it'd be best to leave your wig at home. This actual Carrera GT is being auctioned by the Octane Collection on Carhuna, the new platform that brings the world's car community together to make buying and selling cars fast, easy and fun. The Octane Collection was established in 2014 and is now based here in Horsham, West Sussex. It specialises in collectible and limited edition supercars with a passion for finding the very best low mileage driving machines. They believe that great cars should be used and enjoyed. That's good news for me because Lucas Hutchings has agreed to let me take this Porsche for a test drive. Oh. Oh. Lucas, I've got a bit of confession to make. I've never driven a Carrera GT. I'm very excited. I've heard so much about clutches and I don't want to spoil your clutch. What is it with these clutches?
Don't panic, Tiff. It's easier than you think. Just don't touch the accelerator.
Well, just take off on tick over.
Exactly that. You've got a nice big V10 engine behind you. It's got anti-stall
software. I'm tempted.
software.
My right foot's switching. It doesn't what it wants to do. Oh,
there you go. You heard a little blip.
I couldn't keep my right foot off the throttle. But do they wear out in a week or so in the way they're talking? Or is it the whole myth, the thing?
It's a complete myth. So there's cars out there that have done 100,000 miles on their original clutches.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so just don't use any throttle when you're driving the car and just take your time pulling out. You can't rush a start in a Carrera GT.
So once rolling, you can nail it, can't you?
Exactly.
Okay. But straight away, of course, smile on my face because I am changing gears and it's just a beautiful position, just like a racing car, right by the wheel and a joy to me manually drive. This is such an analog car. But there is some traction control, a little bit comes in occasionally.
You do have traction control, no stability control, and you know you want to make sure it's your right foot doing the traction control, not the car itself. You know, it's a basic system. Yeah, so it's a Porsche, so people love to use them. Yeah. You know, they're well engineered, they're well put together, they don't fall apart. And you know, the Carrera GT is probably the best analog driver's car out there. So people use them. You know, those owners that have them keep them for a long time. They drive them. Does it drop the value though a lot? You know, if you have a high mileage. I think like any car, you know, there's a spread, isn't there, between the collectible, the super low mileage ones, right up to the high mileage ones, and you know, there's a spread, isn't there?
So what's the price range now then, from what to what? If you're from a rough, shabby one,
it's probably around sort of 600, 700,000, all the way up to 1.5, 1.8 million, depending on if it's a sort of rare paint to sample car.
I've got miles an hour on this, but there are some British-made ones that have the mile an hour speedos. Does that help raise the price?
So they did 49 UK examples delivered to the UK. All the Carrera GTs were left-hand drive, but they did these 49 for the UK. UK delivered car commands a sort of slight premium in the UK, much like a French delivered car in France would command a slight premium there. Ultimately, they're all made in the same factory. They did 2 chassis runs, WP0, ZZZ chassis numbers, which were sort of EU and rest of the world cars. And then they did the USA allocation.
Sorry, I liked your stories, but I just had to open the throttle a little bit then. What a joy. I can't believe I've never driven one before. I'm now driving one and I can't afford one because they're too expensive. But they must be, I mean, have you sold many of these? Have many gone through your hands?
Yeah, we carved out a niche sort of around 6 years ago in dealing with these. You know, I love driving. When these Carrera GTs came out, I wasn't a huge Porsche fan at the time, and they've really grown on me.
Yeah.
And they sort of look timeless now. The design of them, you know, they get better with age.
I mean, what I'm loving, I'm 60 miles an hour with the roof off, and it's as quiet as anything in here. You know, you can chat away. I mean, it's a beautiful cruising car at low speeds.
Yeah, you talk to the guys that have had them all, you know, the F50s, the McLaren F1s, the CGTs, the F40s, you know, all these sort of end-of-era analog hypercars, and you ask them which one is the best to drive, and, you know, a lot of the time it is the Carrera GT.
So when you're buying, what are the problems you might look for? Are there any little features they have that you have to look out for?
Well, the clutch is always a big, expensive cost.
Yeah.
Porsche can measure the clutch wear, and they can give you an indication of how far worn it is. On this one, they've measured it at 29.8 millimeters. From new, they come with 31 millimeters, and Porsche recommends replace them at 28 millimeters. So that means it has over 60% remaining. So it's easy to keep track on those costs. Suspension, if they're sat for a while, some of the seals can leak in the suspension. They had a problem with the cams early on that they replaced under goodwill. That's now finished. So if you do need some cams replaced, that's a 20 grand bill. Yeah, for those things. But you know, when you're looking, make sure the car's got good Porsche history, it's seen Porsche regularly, and it's had a recent check over. And once all those bits have been addressed, you know, it's actually hassle-free motoring. You know, once you're on top of those bits. Luggage space is a bit of a problem in a Carrera GT, which is why they introduced the luggage set. But you know, when you fold the roof away into the front, you know, there's nowhere to put your overnight luggage in.
I would see them as silver and only silver. Are there many colour options?
GT Silver was the launch colour, and then in the standard palette you had Seal Grey, which is what this car is. You had Faience Yellow, Guards Red as the two sort of more crazy colours, and then Solid Black and Basalt Black. Porsche did offer a sort of paint to sample range, so a few cars came in sort of different colours, but they're quite hard to find.
So what's the premium price? Which is the one that's cost you a bit more because it's red or yellow? Or
I think everyone has their sort of preference really when looking for a car. I mean, the paint to sample cars will command more. You know, some people like the launch colours, GT Silver with Ascot. You know, it's personal preference really.
I fancy red with a black interior actually. I don't know why, I've just thought of that.
There you go, black with terracotta's mine.
But I do love having a round steering wheel, the perfect grip, not too fat, not too thin, manual gearbox. Just those little things cruising at 60 miles an hour give you a smile on your face.
Yeah, it's the ultimate driver's car. You know, what more do you need? You've got analog gauges, hydraulic steering, a fantastic 6-speed manual, and a naturally aspirated V10.
And so, if you're now interested in buying Porsche Carrera GT chassis 0295, Carhuna is the place to go.